Deleted Session, September 24, 1977. Good evening. Now, the small morning statement I gave you each to read. Rob noted in the deleted session for August 17, 1977. Seth has worked. Why? Because for one thing, it was general enough so that it did not bring any immediate details into your minds, and left plenty of room for action in an overall manner. It directed your thoughts and expectations again in an overall manner. Your house has been calm. Rupert's body has improved each day, and his work and yours have been productive. Because that statement was couched as it was, it did not bring any arguments to your minds. You read it easily. You did not question how your house was to be more calm. And indeed, the suggestion itself was rather innocuous in its way, yet highly effective. The suggestions took hold, uniting frameworks 1 and 2. Several times this week, Rupert imagined the two of you on a trip to Florida, with a trailer by the ocean, both of you walking, of course, but quite happily. He began by thinking in practical terms in framework 1. You could do it now, though it would be difficult, but you could go to Florida. If you had to, you could even fix it so Rupert could eat mostly in the car or in a van. So his thoughts went. Framework 1 thoughts, but despite the restrictions they entailed, they still represented an important turn for the better. On several occasions, he simply imagined the two of you in Florida, in the trailer as before, with no thought for how you got there. The first thoughts, with their emphasis on detail, were still important, convincing him that such a trip was possible, even under present conditions. He was then free in his second imagining. Physically, his ideas of motion, however, moved from the house, highly important. There was a creative use of suggestion, the second, of course, far better than the first group of thoughts. A good deal of the time, he has been writing well, operating in framework 2. Whenever you operate in framework 2 in any area, to some extent, you enrich other areas of your life. He was excited that evening about 7, and in that period of physical time, he forgot his problems, and he dealt with the challenge of the book in the same way that he can learn to handle the physical situation. In framework 2, in your terms, time is foreshortened, and work is done there in a flash, so to speak. Some time may be involved physically for the materialization, but in usual terms, the foreshortening effect can be quite startling, for time is affected and used in an entirely different fashion. The ideas for aspect, politics, and the entire library experience germinated one evening in a flash of inspiration just before the flood, Rob noted in June 1972. They said the physical time was nothing, a few hours, and the physical time had to pass for the writing of the books. Yet those books will also influence future time in an important fashion. They represent concentrated experience in which Rupert threw aside, for a time, the non-beliefs of Framework 1, its laws and regulations. Even Chestnut Bees, written so long ago, published in an obscure enough, forgive me, Rob noted humorously. They said, pop, magazine, reaches out into time, and affects a woman's movement that then did not exist in your terms. Rupert's imaginative act in writing Chestnut Bees was that concentrated. On a few occasions this week that he has already forgotten, He intuitively felt that his physical condition could indeed change so smoothly that he was hardly aware of it. That is creative thinking in the physical area. He should use large, general suggestions of a positive nature that do not concentrate upon details, that do not automatically give rise to contradictions with present behavior. I would like such suggestions inserted when he is already in a framework 2 situation, for they will have double benefit there. You had some good points when you told him, for example, to simply think of fixing rice, rather than worrying about how to do it. There, however, he was in his situation, saying, "Well, I can do it, though it may be difficult." Then leading up to, "Well, perhaps, since I know I can do it, I will then be able to do it easier." Need these thought steps to your position. The thoughts of the Florida trip offered no present contradictions, because he knew he was not leaving for any trip tomorrow. The fantasy, however, involved him in motion, aroused emotion, and instantly broadened his mental outlook. The days he had those fantasies, he operated better physically here. Someone who is thinking of going to Florida can get to the bathroom far more quickly. The comparison is ludicrous. I can think more creatively and positively in all areas of my life. I can move faster and more surely in all areas of my life. My body can feel better and perform better. I can enjoy each day more. Those suggestions give room for action. He should use them daily. There is no such thing as hypnosis, or all thoughts involve hypnosis. In a way, each statement is true. Your political campaigns involve hypnosis, which simply means concentrated suggestion. Suggestions always imply an impetus directing action. Your entire household is a subjective structure. Your writing room, Joseph, is a physical reminder of your intent, filled with not only books and papers, but the implied suggestion that gives them reality. It is, of course, no coincidence that you have a writing room and a studio, not simply one or the other. So let the two rooms show the two important interests of your life. They show how you use your time and imply what has come from the past and what is projected into the future. They represent the state of your mind. Your kitchen is a room you walk through in your house. Ruber tried to explain this in terms of lighting, though that did not particularly apply. But you are everywhere surrounded, of course, by your own suggestions, physically materialized. What you do in those situations is in a way concentrated. It does things to time. Because of your intent and because of your peculiar nature of framework 2. Such physical areas are charged in that regard, because the mental areas connected with them are. In a manner of speaking, they are hypnotic containers, emphasizing what you want emphasized, and cutting off data that do not apply, or that is contradictory. You direct yourself to concentrate in a particular fashion. All of this happens quite automatically, yet it is the result of your conscious decisions along the way. Hypnosis then involves concentrated stimulus toward action of a certain kind. Everyone uses it, regardless of the terms. It works well because at the time impediments are intentionally cut to minimum, and the details involved that are necessary are part of an overall plan. Ruber earlier said, before the session, that he suddenly had an idea for a book called The Beginning. He was creatively aroused. He did not wonder how he would get the paper to write it on. He did not question the mechanics. In the physical era, he has questioned the mechanics. He has doubted his ability for reasons given in the past, and in the past, to some extent, you helped him, and you did not reinforce his sense of physical ability. Now you are. I do not want a concentration upon detail. However, he is indeed overall taller. His eyes are improving. His interest and improvement in the writing area will also help his general condition, for many reasons. It is perfectly natural, however, for him not to be happy at certain times, temporarily. When he feels that way, he should tell you. That is different from projecting negatively into the future. I would like, however, some hypnosis, of the kind we have been speaking of, in the near future. This involves concentrated work. Again, that foreshortens time. Give us a moment. I am making the recommendations, for I know what is most effective, but I am not certain of your equipment. At one time, however, he made his own tape recording, with his voice giving himself suggestions in the background of a record, and he played that while he was writing. Now, when he is writing, he is often in framework too. He did not concentrate upon the record, and that method worked most effectively. Some version of that method would be most effective, for it directs him most effectively toward physical ends. Most of all, I want him to realize that his body is improving, and that the improvement can easily accelerate. Easily. Now take your break. Now, the idea of a journey is always highly important, symbolically speaking, so that particular mental fantasy is a good one. It does not conflict with the details of any given day, and yet it acts to generate overall impetus and emotionally places Ruber out of the house. It comes naturally to him, and even done in framework one's limited manner. It is beneficial. It would even help if the two of you discussed such a trip as a definite possibility, but without any definite time period involved. Work done in framework 2, however, is out of all proportion to the effort expended. That is why the tape suggestions are important. An alternative could involve 2 definite periods of self-suggestion a week, prepared for ahead of time, with a specific physical area chosen in the same way that you choose certain areas for your writing or painting. Ruber would either read himself suggestions that he had thoughtfully written out earlier, or listen to a cassette that he had made. Another alternative is for you to give the suggestions in the role of hypnotist. Any of these methods, however, involve little effort, with important concentrated results, for you are taking time aside in the way that I explained earlier you both do in the areas of your work. This involves accelerated suggestion. Now, Nibin traveled extensively in early years. He did visit Egypt and made tours to various esoteric communities. He became disenchanted at a young age with the many conflicting schools of truth. So when he found what he finally settled upon, he would brook no interference. When you operate, practically speaking, in terms of framework 2, you have a stronger impact upon time and reality. You are more effective in that regard. Nibin and you influence each other because you operate in framework 2, in the work areas of your lives. You become closer, say, for in physical terms of time, there is a foreshortening. Time length can be lengthened or shortened, or made to disappear entirely. The events of time in such a case from the outside might seem to change drastically, while those inside our time structures would not notice any change in a framework 1 level. Your historical actuality and Nibin's would never collide. On that level, no change occurs, but the foreshortening of time can allow you and Nibin to interact if you want to, or if he does, so that images, ideas, and other interchanges can occur in a way that does not dislodge or disarray a moment of your physical time or his. That is what happened with your sketch. When Robert sends out energy, he feels no impediment in space, and has felt a straight line go out in whatever direction required. That is definitely a framework to experience. Now, with you and Nibi, the same occurs in time. A channel opens up as surely, through which images, ideas, and interchanges can occur. It is interesting that you picked up an older Nibin than earlier. For the elder Nibin, if disillusioned, was also more open than earlier, and more gentle of disposition. He was looking toward the kind of answers that you are beginning to find. In framework 2, the mind affects the physical brain in a more complete and effective manner than usual, and can spark images, thoughts, or correlations that exist in a context outside of the time that is happening in framework 1. Time happens at a certain regulated rate, then obviously in framework 1. A certain amount of time is needed there to do a certain amount of work, and according to scientific dictates, a specific amount of effort is required to perform different kinds of work. Framework 1, to some extent or another, however, is always influenced by framework 2. There, the same correlations do not apply between the effort expended and the work performed, or the time required for such procedures. Very little effort there, comparatively speaking, has an effect here in framework 1. That is, a small amount of effort in framework 2 can result in extraordinary work done in framework 2 and with a foreshortened time effect. Suggestion then, purposefully applied while in a relaxed state, which is a connective to framework 2, can be most effective. Your impressions of Nibin can, while you were relaxed, thinking momentarily of something else, but with an overall desire to know more about Nibin. The creative principles are the same. That is why I am making these connections, so that Robert can insert what he wants in framework 2 with little exertion of effort and great benefit. The same applies to you for more material about Nibin on your own. Nibin prayed and meditated often, so his framework, you see, is often the same as yours, and those meditative periods provide the necessary conditions on both of your parts. His pursuit of truth led his mind outward through time. You use space, I use time. Time, again, can be lengthened, shortened. You can move sidewards in it, for example, as you do in space. These frameworks, one way or another, always involve alterations in time. Even as Robert's, James, and Sesame books from the library involve information not usually available in Framework 1's time sequence. I will tell you what I can of what you want to know about Nibin's times, for example, but you can also obtain from him, if you understand tonight's material, information of that nature, and the first-hand data about the various sects he visited. I suggest that for your enjoyment and education. He also obtained some information about you. You realize, for the channel is open. You would not get such information unless both of you consented. I gave you both plenty of work on this evening. Ross said yes. They said, and the suggestions in the session are not for my benefit. Robert's eyes are improving, obviously, since he is working at his copy, and so forth. They do not protrude as much and are improving in their appearance. They are also still adjusting, however, as the whole body posture undergoes changes. This is a quite natural procedure. If you trust the body, then you trust that procedure. Your drawing of the jewelry does represent a piece of jewelry that Nibin wore all of the time. The symbols were then ancient in origin, representing the search for truth and the Godhead. But it was an unorthodox piece for him to wear. It did have an Egyptian origin, but also Hebrew connections. There were no pure sects even then, and the particular one Nibin followed was a curious mixture of ancient Egyptian beliefs and Hebrew beliefs. See what you can find out about it, and now I bid you a fond good evening. Ross said, "Thank you very much," says. They said, "Tell Ruber I will see, again, that he gets help and inspiration in framework too, that directly affects his physical condition. A shelf up, there is a shelf indeed."